Welcome to the World Away.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the World Aways. How are you all?
Hi everyone, how's your week been, Belle?
Well, those who have listened the last few weeks will know I am now in Tunisia. But before I went, I'm going to tell you all about Tunisia later on. But before I went, I did a mad dash up to Bendigo to see the latest exhibition at the Bendigo Art Gallery, which is Frida Kahlo in her own image. And this is the gallery that brought you the Grace Kelly and the Elvis blockbusters, and it's done it again, bringing these rare artifacts of Frida's life out of Mexico for the first time for a glimpse behind the flower crown. As you know, Frida, always had those gorgeous blooms woven into her hair. So Bendigo has just gone all out for the whole event. But I mean, the story, like the curation at the art gallery, is just phenomenal, and it tells you what an incredible life this artist had. I mean, she had so much trauma in her life. She had polio at 6. So her right leg was shorter than the left. And then when she was 18, she was in an absolutely horrific traffic accident where she broke her back, her legs, and she was actually impaled. I know, okay, this one's a bit, but it impaled, a metal rod impaled her body, through her body when she was just 18. And that gave her a life of pain, just a life of absolutely torturous pain. Eventually, her leg was amputated when she was older. And she was always on crutches and wearing plaster corsets and all of this sort of exterior, almost like an exterior framework just to hold her together. And so this incredible woman did not stop in her bed, and she would be in bed for years. She would create art, even these plaster corsets that kind of pretty much held her body together. She would decorate with all of that, incredible Mexican art that she's so famous for. And Kirsty, I just think it was phenomenal. She was married at the time and completely overshadowed by her husband, Diego Rivera, who was Mexico's top artist and one of the world's top artists at the time. But he knew that she was going to become this global icon. So after she died in the late 50s, all of her personal belongings, her clothing, her makeup, everything was held in her house and pretty much sealed in a bathroom for 50 years until 50 years after her death. So that's the artifacts that have come to Bendigo at the moment in this incredible exhibition. First time in Australia. And after this, the exhibition goes back to Mexico. It's not one of these ones that tours the rest of the world. So I think it's just incredible that Bendigo has managed to get such an exhibition there. So I cannot urge you enough to go see this exhibition. And I've got to say, Bendigo has gone all in. It's got a taco trail in 23 restaurants and cafes. It's got, including an ice cream taco, which was just phenomenal, with bits of real gold on it because, Bendigo and gold. And there's things like the little tram that runs around the city is having a tequila takeover. There's chili chocolate, chili peanut brittle, all of the windows in the shops are covered in ribbons that emulate the ribbons that Frida used to weave through her hair. It's absolutely phenomenal, Kirsty.
It does sound absolutely incredible, yes, and they do a great job at obviously celebrating such an important person. And my God, what a life she's had. So much suffering, and to come out of it as she has is just remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she wasn't like what I found was amazing was that she's not this sad, woebegone character. She was having, well, her husband notoriously had affairs with pretty much anybody that walked past, including her own sister. But then, I know, right? But then,
Not funny, but
well, it's not really, but it's not like she was sitting in the shadows. I did not realize she had an affair with Josephine Baker, amongst others, because she was very, she was ahead of her time. She was gender fluid. She was bisexual. She was this chameleon that would just change her look depending on how she was feeling at the time. An astonishing person. And she just knew how to make her presence felt. And that's how she became famous, is that people would go to photograph her husband. And I got to say, he was no great shake, so I don't think in the looks department. But then he's got this absolutely dynamic, beautiful, strongly opinionated wife sitting beside it because she was extremely pro-Mexican and very high up in the Communist Party. And she just his limelight, and later on that cult grew into the cult of Freda. So go look. I say you've got to go to. So it's a Bendigo Art Gallery. It is running. The exhibition runs until July the 13th, and tickets are $35 for adults. And here's my hot tip: catch the V line up from Melbourne, because you just use your Mikey card. So you just jump on the train. 2 hours later, you have a little cup of tea from the bar car, and you're in Bendigo for the day or stay overnight. Such a great experience.
Amazing, great experience. And yeah, it does. It sounds like just a great experience. And you're right, it's easy to get to from Melbourne. It's such a great way to even just do it for a day trip. Right, well, on to our travel insight this week, and we are here to reveal to you the world's best airports. iTrax has released its annual survey of the top airports around the world. This is really good intel for those who are looking at sort of long layovers, because when you've got a long layover, and let's be honest, if you're traveling internationally, a lot of the time you do from Australia, you need to know the best places to go. So who was top on the list, Belle?
Oh, yes. Well, I am the mistress of the long layover. This will not surprise avid travelers, but Singapore's Changi Airport has taken out the top gong. This is the 13th time they've won this award. And we've talked about this airport before, because beside the fact that it's just got a beautiful airport with the world's tallest indoor waterfall, there are also themed gardens, there's art installations, and as we were talking about, I think last week even, with Dennis Bunnick, it's got a rooftop pool and a jacuzzi in there, which is one of the great ways to spend a layover if you don't have lounge access.
Yeah. And second place went to Qatar's Hamad International Airport, and that airport has a tropical garden called Orchard, which has 300 trees, and get this, more than 25,000 shrubs and plants. How can you get 25,000 shrubs and plants in an airport? But there you go. And there are also 30 art displays. Seems increasingly these airports are incorporating art displays, actually, even exhibitions and sculptures. Third place was Tokyo International Airport, Haneda, which has a replica street scene on the 4th floor. And it's also got in a museum. So you can go in there and explore the world of aviation and the history of Japan Airlines. It was also named the world's cleanest airport.
Meanwhile, in the Asia Pacific, the best airports were Melbourne, Brisbane, Auckland, and Sydney in that order. Melbourne Airport was the only Australian entry in the top 20. I mean, look, it's got nothing on the big ones like Hong Kong or gorgeous little Vienna Airport, which came in 6th and 15th respectively. But what I do like is the very Melbourne food and coffee offerings here, which reflect the city's phenomenal dining scene.
Yeah. And back to that, what I was saying about having airports having amazing art, they actually had a category for the award for the best art in an airport. And it was taken out by Houston Airport System for the 3rd year in a row. And that airport has got 400 works, from large-scale murals and sculptures to even live performances and digital storytelling.
And best airport shopping went to Doha's Hamad International Airport, which has 180 retail and dining options. Note that Hamad has been named best airport in the world. It was last year's best airport. It tends to go head-to-head with Singapore every year. Singapore's won it 13 times. So that's a pretty astonishing competition between the two of them. Look, I've done a lot of long layovers in Qatar of late. I'll be passing back through there as we go to air. And it does have fantastic facilities for the economy passenger that doesn't have lounge access. And I also loved the award for best washrooms, because who doesn't want to be in an airport with a sparkling clean loo? And it is noteworthy that the top 10 best washrooms or bathrooms in airports around the world, it was almost a completely Asian thing, with 5 airports from Japan in the list. Singapore's Changi won the top gong again, and the only non-Asian airport in that list was Bahrain, which was quite a surprise to me.
Yes, great to have a good, nice, clean bathroom. And best dining in an airport went to Singapore's Changi as well, ahead of Tokyo's Haneda and Rome's Fiumicino in 3rd place.
Look, I wanted to see what was at the bottom of the list of these 100 best airports. And actually, there are quite a few surprises. Ankara, which is the Turkish capital, is right at the bottom at number 100. I mean, there's still plenty of airports less than that, but, that are worse than that. But it was just a surprise to see Ankara there. And at number 99, Dublin, which I've got to say always feels just a little bit grubby. But also in that lowest Lowest 10, I found Oslo, Porto in Portugal, and London City Airport. And just above them in the late 90s were JFK and Athens, all the way down the bottom of that list.
And we will put a link to all the winners, which features all the categories, obviously, in the show notes. This week, I'm interviewing Celeste Mitchell, author of Ultimate Beaches Australia, where she discovers 80 of the best beaches from the big names to some secret spots, places for world class surf breaks or rock pools for the kids. And Celeste is also owner of the slow travel platform Life Unhurried, and we touch on some of her top picks for beachside slow stays. Welcome to the show, Celeste.
Thank you for having me, Kirsty.
So great to have you on The World Awaits. Let's start by tell us a bit about your background and how you came to be in the travel industry.
I studied journalism, and so I started out in working in magazines in Sydney for about 8 years, but that was more in the teen entertainment world on titles like Girlfriend and Total Girl and TV Hits. So a bit of a different world. But after a short stint in tourism PR, I started freelancing about 12 years ago now, and I've been focused solely on travel for at least 10 of those. So I write for major titles like Escape and Australian Traveller, Explore, and Travel and Luxury in The Australian.
And tell us a little bit about what else you do now, because as well as being an incredibly prolific travel writer and author, you also have a platform called Life Unhurried.
Yes, so I've launched Life Unhurried with two friends and business partners in 2018. It's basically an online platform focused on slowing down and focused on how to incorporate more slow living and slow travel practices. And within that, we really feature what we call slow stays. So we've got a beautiful directory of accommodation where you can stay in the type of places where you know that you can really go and switch off and unwind. So that's a real passion project on the side that I like to, keep balanced with the travel writing.
And definitely an area I think more and more people are looking for these days. So let's focus on your latest project. So, what made you want to write this particular book about beaches?
I was really lucky actually because with Life Unhurried, we actually have a coffee table book that we bought out that was published by Hardy Grant in 2022. So after that book came out, a few months later, the publisher offered me the opportunity to write the next book in what they call the Ultimate series. So you might have seen them around. There's quite a few out there now: Ultimate Hikes, Ultimate Camping, Ultimate Caravan Trips, and they've been doing really well. And they asked me about writing one about beaches. And so I jumped at the opportunity, probably a little bit naively, as I had two very small children and a lot on my plate. But I just thought, I grew up by the beach. I've always lived by the coast. I absolutely love the beach. I thought I knew the East Coast pretty well. Turned out it was a pretty daunting task. Australia is very large, but in the end, I feel lucky because to have had a reason to travel to all the places I had yet to visit in the name of research.
Amazing. And how many beaches are there in Australia?
Oh, there's over 10,000. I was trying to narrow that down to 80. So it's still quite a hefty number that I had to come to in the end. And so I was very strategic about it. I had all my spreadsheets and was trying to nut out how many beaches per state I would do. And because they wanted it to be a real even mix. And then you're wanting to have a real mix of those big names, but also some lesser known beaches. And really, tried to, it sounds like a big number, but trying to figure out 80 was quite daunting.
Absolutely, particularly if there's 10,000. My gosh, who would have realized that there were 10,000 beaches? I wonder, I would love to hear from anyone to see how many beaches people have ticked off their list. What are let's talk through some of the spots then. So, what are some of the spots that you actually covered that are maybe some of not such big name beaches? A lot of people would have obviously heard or been to some of the biggest names, particularly the ones that always win those awards. But what about some of the lesser known beaches?
Yeah, like you said, I was trying to cover it because we wanted a mix for everyone. So there's a lot of family friendly beaches in there, but also ones that are going to appeal more to surfers or hikers. And I'll just say that within that, for every beach, it really drills down to provide information on whether it's accessible, what the patrol information is, whether it's dog friendly, what hikes are nearby, surf breaks, where to stay, and also got things about where to get the best fish and chips or the best ice creams. Apart from those big name beaches, some of the ones that come to mind for me are perhaps some of the harder to reach spots that you might have to like drive in on a longer four-wheel drive track or hike to get to. So one was Blowhole Beach in South Australia, and that's in Deep Creek National Park, which is down on the Fleurieu Peninsula. And so it's not a really long hike. It's only a few kilometers, but that I don't know, there's a feeling of achievement when you get down to a place like that, and you also have that sense of remoteness because it's not just a beach that everyone can pull up in their car or jump off the train and go there. That was a great one. I also really love some of the smaller island beaches. One was that's in the book is Sunset Beach on Middle Island, which is in the Keppel group of islands on the Capricorn coast. It's only accessible by private boat, but you can also get there on a day trip. So I think anything like that where it's only accessible by boat is certainly different to some of your big Bondis. And also any of Tasmania's beaches. They're all so different and just so quiet compared to what most people are used to.
What are some of the differences in some of these beaches? So obviously, because a beach isn't just a beach, right? Like you say, like some of them are really wild and rugged and other ones are really pristine with gin clear waters. What are some of the most dramatic beaches that have got the most dramatic differences?
Oh, some that jump to mind immediately are places like Rainbow Beach in Queensland because you've got these towering rainbow coloured cliffs that just run along the beach. And that's what impresses you most about that long stretch of sand. And then in others that are enclosed within rocky headlands, like there's a beautiful Cabarita Beach on the Tweed coast in New South Wales. Actually, Cabarita is quite a long beach, but there's a tiny little section of it that I talk about in the book because that's such a beautiful little spot. You feel like you're really cradled in there. There's others that have these incredible granite boulders, and that's really what captures your attention. Elephant Rocks in Western Australia, which is just near Denmark on the south coast of Western Australia. It's unlike any other beach that I've seen in Australia. So they can be all so varied, and when it comes to the vegetation that's around there and how you access them as well.
Are there any that really surprised you that when you were doing your research, wow, I just never expected that?
It's called Huntingfield Bay on Magnetic Island, which is an island just off Townsville in North Queensland. Another one that you can only access by boat, but it actually has this amazing, it's only in certain months of the year, but it's got a waterfall that flows down onto the beach. So it basically cascades down over all these granite boulders down to the beach and creates like a pool of fresh water right there on the sand. So that was really incredible. I haven't seen anything like that. The other was the watercolor along the south coast of Western Australia, especially there's a spot called Little Boat Harbour Beach in Bremer Bay, and just like piercing blue turquoise water and just no one else there. And I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me along that section of coast. I also love how beautiful and varied the beaches on Kangaroo Island are. Like, I think there's places that I'd heard so many good things about Kangaroo Island, and you think of like nature and the wildlife and the food experiences that you can have there. But there's so many incredible beaches on that island as well. And I think even though this is one that I didn't get to personally, some of the really remote beaches in Arnhem Land, Lonely Beach is one that is in the book. And when you see the photos of that, you'll understand what makes it special.
Yeah, and I think that's it, right? The diversity in Australia on the beaches and the fact that you could probably be on some of those beaches and feel like you're anywhere in the world. Some of them are like the Maldives and others are the Philippines or some really rugged surf spots somewhere. They just seem so varied. So this is like asking who's your favorite child, but did you have a favorite?
I know this is literally the question that everybody's asked me, like whenever I've talked about working on this book. I think there's too many. What I would say is I think the beaches where I've been with the ones that I love, like that, so much of a beach experience can be who you're with and, what you're doing, whether you're on holidays at that time, camping on the beach, like that certainly has a huge impact on how you feel about a beach. And I find with a lot of these small beach towns, it's a real nostalgic kind of feeling that people have for these places as well. There might be places that they visit every year. Sawtell is one that's like that for me. It's just south of Coffs Harbour, and it's somewhere that we go to visit friends at least once a year. I think because it's got the beach, it's got rock pools, the Bonville headlands there with the back beach, and then there's an ocean pool and the creek flows in, and it's just beautiful. It seems like it's amazing no matter what the conditions are. Agnes Water in Queensland is also very cool. Like, it's just such a chilled out spot. The campground's right on the sand. It's the most northernmost beach with surf, but it's this really gentle point break. So it's great for kids, great for beginners. And I also really love South Gorge on Minjerribah or North Stradbroke Island. It's just like this little sliver of a beach and yeah, just got these towering cliffs beside you that are really beautiful. I could go on and on. I think Twilight Beach in Esperance also has to be seen in real life. The boulders that rise out of the water there are just amazing. And the one I mentioned before, Elephant Rocks, if you haven't been there, like being able to walk down between those granite boulders and get onto the beach there is really special.
Amazing. You're so making me want to have a beach getaway. I'm going to have to ask you a question, backtrack a little to something you were saying before, and you have to excuse the accent, but you said that there were some beaches that had the best fish and chips. So I have to ask you, which one? Which has? I'm not going to repeat my question.
Look, I couldn't tell. It's not that I could tell you which beach had it. It's more that, like, within where possible, I've tried to put in mentions of where to get the best fish and chips or the best ice cream. I'd have to actually flick through the book to tell you now, but I know that there's something really cool actually in Wooli in New South Wales. They have an old school ice cream truck. And in summer, you can actually text them, like, that when you want to have an ice cream and they'll drive to you so you can get your ice cream. So I thought that was super cool.
Because that's such a neat part, isn't it, of a great part of beach experiences too, is taking food and being able to have picnics. Was there anywhere that was best for a little picnic spot, maybe private little areas for couples? Because we all know most beaches are obviously great for children and there are a lot of family friendly beaches. But what about places that are a little more isolated or a better for couples?
I have a friend who will really hate me for talking about this one, but Scott's Head in New South Wales, it is really great for families. But I think when you talk about picnic spots or somewhere where you're getting that fresh seafood, when we were there, we went and got some oysters from a seafood shop, which is literally out of some guy's house in a couple of streets back from the beach. And you go and pick up your Nambucca oysters and bring them to the beachfront. And there's this really beautiful table there that's covered in mosaic tiles. It's in the shape of a whale tail. And you sit there overlooking the water. If you're there at sunset, you've got these pandanus trees framing the scene, overlooking the water there. Pour yourself some bubbles, have the oysters, and yeah, that was really primo.
Amazing. That sounds like an amazing experience. And so what about with your Life Unharried hat on? What are some of the top picks for sort of some beachside slow stays? So some places where they're near or right next to amazing beaches where you can stay and they don't have to be places in your book.
Oh, no, that was one of my favorite things about the book, because I could put in, like, I wanted to really focus on great beach shacks and the ones that still exist that are also really beautiful. There's plenty of campgrounds in the book. I've definitely talked about, like, best campgrounds that are on the beach, prime position, like that Agnes Water one I spoke about. Or there's also a Reflections at Scott's Head, the Big Four in Sawtell. And there's really cute A-frames at a place called Esperance Chalet Village in WA. But when it comes to shacks, there's one called The Slow in Wooli, which is right on the beachfront. Drop in Bendalong, which is right near Washerwoman's Beach. That's one that I've got on the New South Wales south coast. I also stayed at a really cool little shack called Tangerine Dream, which is in Deep Creek National Park in South Australia. And it's this real 70s vibe. Original shack, you've got 70s decor, record player and fireplace inside, but out the back it's got a fire pit and an outdoor bathtub, and you're right near the entrance of the national park, so you can go do that great hike past all the kangaroos, past all the grass trees down to Blowhole Beach. I also really love Arku House, which sits right on the sand in Sisters Beach in Tasmania, so that's up on the north coast. And it's just like this really beautiful A-frame, and the owners that have it did an amazing renovation on it, and staying there was a really special spot to be that close to the beach.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like it would make you slow down, right? Because you're actually close to the beach. But it sounds like they're also really unique properties, like they in themselves. They've got something quirky about them, or they're quite unique. Is that what helps make it a slow stay?
Yeah, definitely looking for places where you'll naturally want to unwind, and some of the things like I mentioned, a record player or things, they might be off grid or they might not, but they're generally more sustainably minded. They're places that encourage slowing down rituals. So perhaps not having a TV, not having Wi-Fi, having to brew your coffee on the stove. Just little moments to remind you to just slow down and enjoy and immerse yourself in the place where you are.
Amazing. I'm sure we could talk about beaches for hours and hours, and people will just have to get hold of your book too. And we will put a link in the show notes of where to get that. But this is the question that we ask, final question we ask all of our guests, which is, what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you on your travels?
This one I had totally forgotten about until I asked my husband for help on this question. He reminded me that after we were married, we somehow scored these amazing business class flights on points. So we did this big trip over to Europe, and we were flying home on the business class Emirates from London to Dubai. And essentially there was a passenger who was very demanding, wanted a lot of champagne. And next minute, she's pulled up some random from another row. She's got him in with her and proceeds to basically give him a lap dance in the business class area. Yeah, that's probably up there with pretty bizarre.
That is very bizarre. Absolutely. And I hope it didn't destroy your business class experience.
Trying to relax. It was interesting, that's for sure.
Oh, look, it's been so great to chat with you about your book and these thank you for so many incredible recommendations for beaches. And you're definitely the go-to when it comes to my next beach getaway.
Oh, I just love Celeste's insight to all of those secret little spots that many of us have probably never heard of. And if you want to pre-order her book, go to her website, celestemitchell.com.au.
Our tip this week is from discovercars.com about the best countries for a road trip. So they surveyed almost 6,000 customers and asked them to rate the countries on how easy it was to find your way around while driving. And probably no surprise to many people, but first place went to New Zealand. So New Zealand was the only country in the ranking that got a score higher than 9. And one reason might be because it says New Zealand is easy to navigate. And it could be because the roads outside of the major cities tend to be much quieter. Although it does point out that the roads can also be winding and narrow, and I can attest to that. So New Zealand is a very easy country to road trip around, and probably, such a small population that it's very easy to get around. The road signs, the wayfinding's really good, and it is just pretty much a big motorway systems. Once you get off onto some of those smaller areas, you just have to be very mindful of that. The road can absolutely be quite small and narrow and winding, and lots of trucks. So that's something to be mindful of.
And in second place, drivers gave Cyprus a top score of 8.83. Visitors to the island might have found it easy to navigate here compared to other countries because the road signs are often in English, which helps drivers who do not speak Greek, or if you're on the other side of the island, Turkish, to find their way around the roads. What do you reckon, Kirsty? Have you driven in Cyprus?
I haven't. Had you? No.
I've actually only been on the Turkish side. So, and there were so few cars that you wouldn't really have a problem. I was doing some walking there as well. But yeah, there were more sheep on the roads, I noticed, than cars. Probably not the same as New Zealand.
Australia was given an average rating of 8.77 out of 10. And the report says it's because the roads are also well signposted. However, drivers who venture further afield into the outback should also consider taking a physical map with them because, of the possibility of getting lost, not having Wi-Fi and all that sort of thing.
Although sometimes some roads, there's only one and it goes straight ahead. Just below Australia in the ratings, Spain came in 4th place from tourist drivers. Its network of autovias or free highways does make it easy to get from A to B. Of course, some of the best sightseeing is going to be further off the beaten path. And I found this down in the south of Spain, where I was training between different places like Seville and down to Cadiz. But really what you wanted to do is get up into those hilltop villages. And actually, no, I got really lost there. So maybe I'm just not the right one for this one. But, some along outside the national roads, you've got to splinter off into those smaller towns. So having a car is essential for that sort of exploring in Spain. So I'm pleased to hear that some people had better luck driving around it than what I did.
And rounding off the top 5, Germany scored 8.67. Drivers should, however, bear in mind that the road signs do not show compass directions, only directions to cities. What do they mean by road signs showing compass directions? I don't know that all road signs show compass directions. Anyway, it's important to know which cities that your route takes you past because of that reason.
Maybe if they say, I don't know, north to some of the European autostradas point that the fact that you're going north, so you're driving along, it goes north to Berlin or something like that. But I don't know. I think a lot of people are navigationally challenged now because we just rely on the road that we're driving. It shows you the route in the direction that you're traveling. And I don't know that would be so helpful. What do you reckon, Kirsty?
Yeah, well, I think we are. I mean, this is the problem. I think because we all use GPS or, Google Maps so often, we don't actually have to, like back in the day before we had any of that, we had to actually navigate ourselves using a map. Yeah, I mean, I think times have changed and absolutely it does make it certainly more challenging. But hey, it's a bit of an adventure. So maybe I'll give it a go.
Well, you can jump onto discovercars.com. We'll put a link to the show notes. And you can make up your mind about the best countries for a road trip.
If you'd like to help support our production costs, you can buy us a coffee at coffee.com/theworldawaits. That's ko-fi.com/theworldawaits, so we can continue to bring you inspirational travel interviews with the world's best. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Click on our profile, scroll down to the bottom to ratings and reviews. And if you're on Spotify, go to our main page and click the 3 dots underneath our photo, or simply drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. We love nothing more than hearing from our listeners.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.